Katie. So it is 9 a.m. here and 8 a.m. On the West Coast. So if you're coming to us from the West Coast, welcome. It is early.
I love that. So welcome. This is our first official live session of the Knit Happy Summit. And I am so thrilled and so honored to be joined by my dear and longtime friend, Dawn from Twice Sheared Sheep. And we've known each other since our businesses were baby businesses, where we learned how to send an email, a marketing email, and how to build our websites and how to run things. And I was trying to figure out how long it's been last night when I was talking. I
Oh
think
my
at least since
goodness.
like 2017,
I
maybe
think
even,
so.
yeah, maybe even earlier than that. And I showed Katie something that was still in my stash. It's only part of the kit, but I won a Twice Shared Cheap kit from you. This was for like a gradient shawl. You were doing a giveaway to grow your list. I think it was a King Sumo deal, going way, way back in the day. And so I still have that. So that is yarn. Now they have their own yarn with their own label on it. And this was the beginnings of Twice Shared Sheep, when Dawn was recycling sweaters, just trying to
Yeah.
figure out like what's
So,
sustainable as a business and what works and how can I be there for, my family, but also bring in money. So
yeah, I know that Jessica and I share similar background stories in that we both have twins
yeah,
and we both, this was both like stay-at-home mom job and things like that. And that I started out. I think Jessica knew what she wanted to do before I did necessarily, or whatever. That I started out unraveling thrift store sweaters for yarn, called it recycled yarn. That I started doing that about 20 years ago when my babies were little. And as all things do in the knitting space in the fiber world, I just kind of fell down a rabbit hole. And, you start out with loving yarn, and then you learn, you're like, oh, there are these like notion things. Those are cool. I bet, I bet I can make those. And then you learn about like how yarn is spun. And I'm like, oh, I could do that. And pretty soon you have alpacas living in your backyard, and you convince your husband that they could really fit in the back of the minivan. And you turn into that crazy fiber lady.
yes. Yeah, so I my beginnings were also with my twins and yeah, wanting to, to be around and be there for them, but take care is expensive and but also wanting, to fit. It's kind of a combination for me, like wanting to fit my world around the family, but also that the family kind of fits around the world. And so there's a lot of give and take, I think, in this, um, independent entrepreneur kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I started out, I was selling finished knits, like newborn baby props for
Yeah, I
photographers.
remember that now.
And I got so burnt out knitting, like, oh, I need 6 bonnets in these different colors. And then the babies come early, as they do, because they're on their own schedule and they don't care about the due date that the doctor said that the mom scheduled the things with the photographer. And then the photographer bought from me. Whoops, the baby's, 3 weeks early or 2 weeks early. And now I need those 6 things that are going to take you, hours to knit each one. Now I need them now. And so it was January 2020, so before I knew what was going to happen, February and March. And I said I need something different, and so I pivoted to designing patterns, which does not keep me up till 4 in the morning knitting the same thing on repeat.
Yeah, that was kind of the reason why I switched from recycled yarn too, is it it was an incredibly labor intensive and time intensive process to unravel the yarns. And while I did love that, like I knit with cashmere when I was a younger knitter because I could get it from thrift store sweaters. I knit with a lot of lace because there's a lot of sweaters unravel as that. But like my body like wanted to give out because it's so hard on that. And nobody wants to be up um, at 4 a.m. working
Yeah.
on something because you have a due date and you need to do it. And
Especially when the
yeah,
babies are going to wake up at 6:30. They don't care how late mommy was up working.
no, babies don't care. This is the time, man. This is the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
So backstory. Let's dive into where Twice Cheered Sheep is now and all the pretties that you have brought to share and demonstrate.
Yeah, so I do have a little bit of a schedule of what I was planning on showing you, but I've got a whole table full of things. And so I thought it might be fun today to do a little bit of a Q&A. And so if you have a particular product that you have some questions about, if you have some questions about me or about um, Twice Sheared Sheep or the business or anything like that, put it in the chat and I'll see how many of those I can get to. If there's something that you want me to demonstrate, I would love to do that. But let me tell you a little bit about me and Twice Sheared Sheep as we go. Like Jessica said, I started out selling recycled yarn from thrift store sweaters, and that's why the company is named Twice Sheared Sheep, is because I kind of gave the company a tongue twister, which I didn't intend to, but um, that sorry, I'm reading the chat and I got distracted. That now I'm really discombobulated. Okay, so Twice Sheared Sheep started out, I was selling recycled yarn. I started selling on eBay, and as all things do, things kind of shift a little bit. I do realize though that I have always been a little bit of an inventor. With materials that I had on hand. When I started recycling yarn, I didn't have a yarn swift, I didn't have a ball winder, I didn't own any of those things. And so I took a baby gate and set it at 36 inches or something like that, and wound the yarn around the top of the baby gate to make my hanks so that I could wash the yarn. And then when I needed to wind it into a ball and I didn't have a Swift to set it on there, normally I like set it on my knees and just kind of like very carefully pull the loops so you don't tangle everything. Um, but I took a an office chair like this and I flipped it upside down on my coffee table and I stuck metal knitting needles of the in the bottom of the spinny part, and I turned it into a kind of a Swift of my own. As you can imagine, it was really pretty janky, and I could not pull very quickly, and I couldn't do it. It was questionable at best. But I found that over the years, I do tend to do that. That if there is a problem that I'm having with something, that I'll see what I have on hand and can I make something that helps me solve this problem, or can I recreate something that I don't have. But the more janky things that I made, the more that I realized, wow, a well-made tool is worth its weight in gold. Because yes, I can use my office chair as a Swift, but it really kind of sucks. And I've used several Swifts over the year, and sometimes even the ones that other people make are still kind of janky. And I'm like, why? Why is this janky? And so, what I have kind of made my career, so to speak, which I cannot believe that this is my job, is to get to come and talk to you about knitting. Like, it's kind of amazing to me that I've kind of built my career on designing specifically or inventing tools that are designed to help knitters with a very specific problem. And usually it's not something that's like, the world is going to end if you don't use this tool, but it's one of those things that's just really annoying, that um so our most popular, or the thing that kind of started it all, was our chain row counter. And Daisy, I'm so glad you love the row counter and the measuring tape. We're going to talk about that row counter. And I feel like I talk about this row counter forever, but Katie was at Rhinebeck and she said she had dozens of people come up to her and say, "Can you show me how to use this?" So we're going to talk about how to use it again because I know that there is somebody who maybe needs who could use a little bit of assistance on this. So, um, oh, our tools are like a deep sigh of relief. Yay! Yay! Um, so our chain row counter, this was really kind of the very first thing that I designed to solve a problem. And the problem is that I would always forget to mark my pattern with the little hash marks that I had completed the row. And it's usually because I was knitting in the round and I get going and you just get in a rhythm and you blow right past that beginning of the round marker and you're like, wait, did I mark that? I'll mark it next time. But you never ever mark it. And so then I spent almost as much time counting my rows as I did actually knitting. And that became really frustrating to me. And so I'm like, I need something that will sit on my needles so that I have to mark it. And I need something that isn't going to get lost. And I need something that if I have to rip out, that I can easily go back. The clicker markers, I had small children, and any of you who have ever had small children in your house know that anything that goes click, click, click is like a magnet for toddlers. And they're like, please, can I click all the things? And you come back and your row counter, the clicky ones, are like 100 rows. And you're like, wait, my knitting is this long. That can't possibly be the right amount. So our chain row counters, the reason why they work so well with my brain is because they're really just kind of a fancy stitch marker. So they can, any place that you normally put a stitch marker, you can replace it with a chain row counter. And um, then as you are knitting, and if you guys are very bright people, you'll notice that I do knit a little different. Ooh, got to keep myself on camera here. I am what's called a combined knitter. That means I purl wonky. And so sometimes my stitches end up mounted differently, but that's okay. Um, so as you're knitting along, when you come to the chain row counter, you are just going to put your needle tip into the next loop and then drop it off your left needle and keep going. Um, Sorry, I got distracted by the chat again. So that means that every time you come to it, you have to move it. It also means you don't actually have to take your hands off your needles, which I love because you've got your yarn all tensioned and everything is perfect. And it was always frustrating to have to drop it and then come over here and mark something, find your pencil, wake up your phone, whatever it was. And then, so a few little quirks of the chain row counter. You'll notice that it has 10 loops. So it'll let you count 10 rows in your knitting. If you need to knit more than 10 rows, we attach what we call a little melody clip because it kind of looks like little eighth notes. If you know music, they kind of look like little music notes. So you can use your melody clip to mark the tens place in your count. So if I put it on the 1, and my loop is on the 5, then that means I'm at 15. Or you can think of this as I have gone through the chain 1 time. If you get a little confused about which number you are on, because you've got both a 4 and a 5 right here, another thing that's unique about our chain row counters is that each link is a solid piece. So the number is actually attached to the loop as a solid handmade loop. And so you just need to look and see which loop is attached to a number, or this loop is attached to which number, and that's the number that you're on. If you need to count more than 100, well, I guess it'll do 110 with the melody clip. If you need to count more than that, awesome, you're doing a big project. We do have a we do have rainbow colored melody clips that are great for this because then you can just add another melody clip that will mark your hundreds place. Another option is if you are knitting a pattern that say you need to do something for like a cable chart, and you need to do something for 6 rows, and then you do your cable cross, and then you repeat that, I don't know how many times. You can use a melody clip to keep track of how many pattern repeats you've actually worked. So you work those 6 rows, you do your cable cross, and then you put your melody clip to mark that I've done that one time, and then move that each time you do that. Does that make sense? The other thing you may notice is that a couple of people in the chat have commented that we have row counters in a circle style and in a straight style. And really what that means is this is a straight chain. It's one long chain. We have a version where the two ends are connected together to form a circle. And this lets you have a shorter chain the entire time. So the straight chain, when you're at the top, is a very long chain on your needle. And as you get to the middle, it gets a little bit shorter as the two halves get longer. And then as you get to the end, it gets a little bit, it reverses the direction. So if that bothers you, if you prefer something that maybe doesn't swing quite as much against your knitting, then a circle chain may be what you will like. Um, I really like the straight chain because it is obvious which direction on the chain I should be going, that I'm always heading towards the charm, so that I don't accidentally count backwards. The other quirk is that you'll notice I'm using a flat piece of knitting. So I'm knitting back and forth. I knit the front side and then I'll flip it over and I'll purl the other direction. If you are knitting flat, you can't put your row counter at the beginning of your work because it's going to just fall off the end of your needle right here. And so I usually put it just after my edging stitches right here, or before a specific element in the center. So if I had a cable right here, I'd put it right before my cable, so it'll remind me what row I'm on that chart for my cable. On the flip side, if you do that, when you come back to your knitting, and you're purling back, you'll notice your row counter is no longer at the beginning of your row. It's almost at the end of the row. I promise you that if you move it to the next loop every round, every row, that it will keep an accurate count. But in your brain, you're going to have to adjust and remember that on the front side, this is showing the row that I am on. And on the back side, it's showing the row that I have just completed. When I do a lot of lace or cable charts, this actually doesn't bother me because sometimes the lace charts don't even have the even rows, the rest rows. And so this will help me just keep track of what was going on the pattern side. But if this does bother you, we have a version of our row counters that we call our odd evens. And so the chain is split in two, where all of the odd numbers are on one chain and the even numbers are on the other chain. And you can put one at each end of your knitting and just slip to the next number on the one that's at the beginning of the row. So that if your brain is the kind that likes to make sure that you mark it always at the beginning of the row or always at the end of the row, that your brain can stay on track. That the whole point of most of our tools is to work how your brain likes it. So I get a lot of questions of, Dawn, do I start on the 1 or do I start on the 0? And my answer is always, which way makes your brain happier? Do you think about your knitting where you start on row 0 and then you mark it when you have completed row 1? Or does your brain think about, I am now currently knitting row 1? And so, yeah, it's really up to how your brain works. So tell me in the chat if you have any other questions about this, but also how you prefer to use your row counter, because I think that there are quite a few people in the chat who this is a very familiar device to them. This is the one knitting tool, honestly, that we have a lot of tools that solve a lot of different problems. This is the one that I have on every single project because I like to spend my time knitting and not my time recounting my knitting, or heaven forbid, having to rip it out because I wasn't paying attention and I went too far. Um, okay, Jackie, yeah. Explain how we do the cables again. So if I have a pattern that says that I dropped a stitch. Okay. If I have a pattern that says that I need to cross my cable every 6 rows, I would usually put my row counter right before where my cable is. And then I would knit for 6 rows. And when I get to the sixth loop, then I know, oh, yes, that is the time that I need to cross my cable. And so then I would cross my cable right here. And I would use my melody clip to mark on the one loop that I have crossed that cable one time. Then the next time that I come back to my chain row counter, I'll start again on the one loop and I'll knit 6 rows. And on the sixth row, then I will come back over here and I will cross my cable again and move my melody clip to the 2 loop to say that I have crossed that cable or worked that pattern repeat twice. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up, Jackie, if that makes sense. Um, oh, good, yay. Okay, odd evens. And of course, I don't have a set of odd evens on my table. That was an oversight on my part. So odd evens, I would have 2 chains, 2 half-length chains hanging on my knitting. They're listed on our website under odd even row counters. And one chain has just the odd numbers. So the 2 wouldn't be here, the 4 wouldn't be here, the 6 wouldn't be here. It has just the odd numbers on this half size chain. And then on this half size chain, it would have only the even numbers. So if I'm working with that, I like to move my counter at the beginning of the row. That's how my brain likes it. So I would knit to my row counter and I would move this one to the next loop in the chain. Then I'm going to knit across and I will slide this one over on the exact same number. I would not change the number on this one. Then I'm going to flip over, and when I come back to this one, I'm going to move it to the next number because it's at the beginning of my row. Knit across and slide this one without moving. And that will keep your count correct with the odd evens. Does that make sense? Um, Oh, Angie, would you consider making row counters for even bigger needles? So we make our row counters, and actually most of our stitch markers are available in 4 sizes. We have small, which is for like your lace or your itty bitty needles, your sock needles, which fits up to a 4. We have medium, which fits up to a US 8. And we have large that fits up to a US 10 and a half. And the extra large fits up to a US 15, but we actually make them on this monster size 17 needle. I just like to make sure that the loops are a little bit bigger than your actual needle size so that you've got room to stick your tip in there and slide it over. If in a pinch, you might be able to use a 17, but 15 is the biggest that I'd recommend. And then we don't have anything bigger than that because at that point the loops, the handmade loops, do tend to get unstable and are more likely to stretch out of shape. So that's always a danger. Um, let's see. I'm reading the chat. So yeah, the row counter, I use my row counter for knitting flat or circular. I use it for both. Um, my brain doesn't have a problem with moving it at the end on the back side. But if you do, the odd evens are a great choice for that. Um, sorry, I was catching up. Um, we do have videos. Katie, you're on top of everything because you're sending all the links, the resources page. I have a whole resources page on my website in the menu if you look for pattern resources. Ooh, Sarah, what is the do the thing marker? Okay, I'm gonna flip my camera for a second because I don't have this one on my table to show you. Um, but okay, we've had a lot of requests for markers to that are for very specific things, like a make one. Well, we do have things for make one left or make one right, but a very specific thing of this is the cable cross or whatever. The do the thing marker just has a little script on it that says do the thing. If you have a pattern that has a special technique, a special cable cross, a special thing that you need to do every 6 rows or something, um, you don't need a special marker to tell you what that special technique is because I'm pretty sure you remember what it is. You just need a reminder to tell you to actually do that thing. So I've had people who are like the do the thing marker. They're like it's cheering you on. Yes, let's do the thing. And it can be that too. But how how I use it is that I like to clip that marker onto my row counter on the loop that I need to do that thing. So let's go back to our example. If we have a cable cross that is every 6 rows, I would put either a colored melody clip or one of our melody clips that has kind of a little dangly bead on it or something. I would put that or the do the thing marker. I'd clip it directly onto my row counter on the loop for the row that I need to remember to do it. And then as I'm knitting along, when I pass it over, there is a physical marker, a reminder to remind me that row 6 is special. And that is the one that I need to do something. So I need to do the thing right here. And I find that if you use your melody clips in particular for counting your tens and your hundreds, that it's really nice to have something that is a little bit, that has a little bit of a dangly bit or is a little bit more substantial to really kind of stand out to you that that is the row that you need to do something. I tend to use, I really like the amethyst melody clip stitch markers for that because the little bead is bright purple and it kind of reminds me of what I need to do. Um, oh, we have requests to talk about increase, decrease counters, journals, and work and tell measuring tapes. Okay. Well, I do have my increase, decrease counters right here on my table. Um, and so this is a great time to segue to that. Um, these in particular, so like I said, I am teaching, I think it's on Saturday. Jessica and I were talking that I'm teaching a class on the magic of a well-turned heel. I have a pattern that's called the magic no gauge sock pattern that uses a short row heel, but it's also a toe up sock. This was my little sample sock, by the way, my adorable little sample sock. But the magic sock pattern is a toe up sock pattern, and you increase every other row. How many of you here have ever knit a asymmetrical shawl that increases every other row, maybe on one side? Or a lot of times a raglan on a sweater will have an increase every other row, or your toes will have an increase or a decrease every other row. And so um, I feel really bad saying this. My poor brain cannot seem to remember whether I am on the increase row or the knit straight row. No, like I have to read my knitting every single time. So I'll come around and I'm looking at it and I'm analyzing these little purl thing, these little knit front back loops right here. And I'm like, okay, was that the row just before me, or was that 2 rows ago? And I can't tell you how many times my my increased lines end up just a little bit wonky because I can't seem to remember. So instead of a big long row counter like this, we made just a 2 row little row counter that works exactly the same way. So essentially, it is just telling you exactly what you should do. So I would put this on my needle, and if the loop is on my left needle, if the loop is on my left needle on the K loop, that means I am going to knit this round. And as I'm passing it, I'm going to move it to the next loop. And so when I come back around, it's now on the I loop. And that's going to tell me that that is the round that I need to increase. Um, and you just go back and forth between the two loops, and it'll keep track of whether you're on the knit row or the increase row. And again, this isn't one of those things that is going to save lives, but it does save me a considerable amount of time not having to reread my knitting, and makes my knitting time far more enjoyable. I do have, we intentionally make our sets of our increase decreases and our odd evens with mismatched charms on the bottom, so that it's easier when you've got your tin with all of your things jumbled up inside, that you can find the one that you're looking for in there for whether it's an increase or a decrease. We do also, by popular request, we've made a set of these with C's so that if you're a crocheter, you can have crochet increase or decrease. Um, I know that most of us recognize that the K can be increase or decrease, whichever. Um, okay, Marianne would love a 4, 6, or 8 markers counter. My suggestion for that is, in order to prevent having a massive amount of row counters in your tin where you have to pull everyone out and try and determine, is this the 4 one, the 6 one, or the 8 one? That I recommend using a regular row counter and maybe even doing the circle one so that it's about five loops long all the time. And that way you can still have a short counter on your knitting, but you don't have to worry about it. It's more versatile for more things. It's kind of like I am very much a interchangeable needle girl because I can use my same interchangeable needles for so many things. Um, and of course, always put your kind of stopper on here to remind you that I'm pretending that this is only 6 rows, 6 loops long. Um, oh, the increase decrease for crochet. This is a knitting summit. Jessica, do you want me to go into the world of crochet here?
I don't mind if you want to touch on it. I think a lot are by crafty. I don't know what word we'll use for that, but
I really like the word bicrafty. I think that that's a fun word.
or
So,
multi-crafty, right? We have cross stitchers
multi-crafty.
and yeah.
Yeah. So if I have got my crochet hook, um, one of the things that I have realized is that you can use a regular row counter on a crochet hook. You just have to remember, you have to allow your knitter's brain to come in a little bit. Most knitters that I've met who are by crafty don't have any problems with the idea of something on your hook. It's the people who have only ever crocheted before that have a problem with this. But I can slide the loop directly onto my hook and then put my working loop on. And then I know that this is my crochet even round. When I come to the end of my round or my row, and I do my turning chain, that I would slide this to the next loop. And then I know that this is my decrease one. So I would work my decrease on this round, if that makes sense. Um, or likewise, you can use a little melody clip and you can clip that into the loop of the chain and then clip it onto your work. And then each time that you come around to the beginning of your round, that's another reason why I like these melody clips, is I can just pop that off and then pop it back on to hold it for the next one. And this works equally as well with the little increase decrease counters, as well as it does. You can use a full size chain row counter in the same way for crochet. You can put it on your hook, which I really like if I'm working flat, or you can clip it onto your work. I really like if I'm working in the round for like amigurumi or something like that. Does that answer the question? Yeah. We have, oh, counting stitches. That sounds like a great segue. Y'all are making my life so easy here today. Okay, friends,
I love these friends. They
they
have
are
helped me save my butt.
they are the best. Okay, so we have our cast on stitch markers. And my hack for today for our cast on stitch markers is they come on a card like this, where all of the stitch markers are kind of on a string. Um, I like to, instead of just taking all of those and dumping them into my tin, so that when I need them, I have to dig them out and try and find which number it is. I like to put my cast on markers on a binder ring like this so that they're always in order and I can take them off one at a time. Our cast on markers right now count by 50s. So when you are, these work great for casting on stitches. If you're casting on a shawl or something that has a lot of stitches, they're great for marking pattern repeats or rows. So I know some people who put those light bulb markers every 10 rows or whatever, or 50 rows or whatever, so that you can keep track of that. Another fun hack is that, okay, let your brain do fancy things again. If you pretend that the 0 is not there, this is now a 5, and the 100 is now a 10, and the 150 is a 15. And so now you can cast on, or you can use these as markers, not just for 50s, but by 5s. And that gives you a wider range of things that you can count or that you can use. And so the other thing that I really like about these cast on markers is these use our melody clip tops. So they're not a solid ring, which means they can just clip onto a stitch on my knitting. So I can use them to mark rows. Or if I've got them on a piece of knitting, or I've got them all on my cable because I've just cast on everything, I don't necessarily have to wait until I come back to it to slide it off. I can just pop it off the cable through that little gap right there. Um, the Melody Clip style are my favorite when I knit lace because I use a lifeline. Raise your hand if you know what a lifeline is, if you've ever heard of a lifeline, if you use it in your knitting. A lifeline is essentially see, yay, Jane and Jackie know, Rita, Kathy, yes. A lifeline is where I would take a separate string and I'm going to run it through every stitch on my needle. And that gives me a reset point. So if I ever need to take my needles out and unravel, that lets me unravel to that point and it cannot unravel past that point. So it's fantastic when you're knitting lace where it's really hard to pick up drop stitches in lace, particularly, or if you have a mistake several rows down, it's much harder to unravel and work it up. I could show you how to do that sometime, but in fact, I think Jessica has a class about how to fix things like that. But it does give you a point. And then these melody clips are great because if you if you have interchangeable needles, you'll know that they have this little tightening hole right here, which is great for putting a lifeline in because you can just stick a piece of crochet thread or dental floss or something through that hole and then just knit across your row, and that will drag the lifeline through with your cord. But if you use a solid stitch marker while you do that, um, your stitch marker is now going to be stuck on your lifeline. Ask me how I have done that. I don't many times. But the melody clips, because they can just, you could just pull that lifeline straight out and just pop it right out. So they're great for knitting lace because you may need a lifeline. Does that make sense? Oh my goodness, our time is, we're at 15 minutes left, I think. Okay, we had a request for the work and tell measuring tape. Um, yes, the lifeline, the little hole for dragging it along, so brilliant. Um, hey, our work and tell measuring tape. This is another one that was somebody asked. So I have a friend named Jean, and she um, requested. She's like, Dawn, it's a stupid thing, but it's really annoying when I get to that last couple of inches of my knitting when I know I'm getting close, that your pattern says you need to knit until it's 6 inches long. And you know you're getting close, but those last few rows before you get there feel like the equivalent of a knitting black hole. It feels like you can knit at the top, when you start knitting, you knit a row and it's like 3 inches. You're like, wow, that's amazing. You get to the very end and it feels like you've knit like 12 rows and you've grown a quarter of an inch. It never seems to be long enough. And she's like, I'd love a way so that I don't have to keep pulling out my measuring tape every row. And so the work and tell measuring tape is designed to sit on your needles like a stitch marker. It measures from the cross of the loop, which will sit just below your needles, which is where you should be measuring your length. You shouldn't measure the length over the top of your needles. You should measure from just below your needles. And so you can set the slider to the number of how long you need to knit, and then just let it hang here. And as you're knitting, your knitting will get longer, and you knit until the bottom of your knitting hits your gauge. Or if you need to knit for 6 inches from a particular point, then I like to put a clip marker on here, or a melody clip will work too. And so then you're going to knit until your slider hits the top of your stitch marker. This works particularly well if you need to knit 4 inches more. So you've already measured your sleeve and you know that you need 4 inches more or something like that. You'll notice that the measuring tape really only goes till about 12 inches. So we've only got about 12 inches of length, and I've had requests for a longer measuring tape. But when I was testing, I found that anything longer than about 12 inches just becomes tangled in everything that I'm knitting. And so to combat the fact that sleeves are generally 14 inches long or 15 inches long, which is longer than what the measuring tape is, that's when you use your clip. So I will cut that measurement in half. So if I need to knit for 14 inches, I'll set my gauge at 7 inches, which is half the distance. And then I will knit until I've reached 7 inches. And then at that 7 inch point, I'm going to place a clip marker, and then I will knit another 7 inches from that clip marker. Does that make sense? Show it on screen. I'm so sorry. So that it does reach to 12 inches. You want to make sure that you don't pull too hard because it can, we've tried our very best to make sure that it won't flip through, but sometimes it does. If that happens, you can just back it up back through the thing to make your loop. So it is just kind of a loop at the bottom, and you can slide the slider all the way up. Okay, Anita, how does your brain like it best? I measure from the top of the blue part so that my knitting, I knit until it touches the top of it. If your brain likes it better that you're measuring from the bottom of it, then set the measurement at the bottom. I don't generally recommend in the middle because it's much harder to gauge that against your knitting. Does that make sense? Um, okay. 10 minutes left. I wanted to get to the last request, which was our project journal before we run out of time. And for this, I'm going to have to zoom out my camera and then you can see how messy my table really is here. Um, I've got all sorts of things on my table. Okay. So our project journal, this is one of my favorite things. And of course, now is a great time for this because we're approaching the end of the year and I'm thinking about, all the things that I did this year or the things that I'm planning on doing next year. This is kind of like my little personal record of the year, but there are people who use this in so many different ways. Again, how does your brain like it? I'd love to see how people use it. So inside, we have got our project details page, which is kind of like a Ravelry page, but analog, where I can write the name of the pattern. Oh, look, Jessica, the very stripy shawl or very stripy cowl. Um, this was such an addictive knit. So Jessica and I did a collaboration with the our everyday merino yarn and her very stripy cowl pattern, which really is an addictive knit. And I knit this the beginning of last year. On the back side, you can keep all the details of the yarn that you used. And of course, I've got little snippets of my yarn right here so that I always know what they are. Inside the little pocket, you can put your gauge swatch or your ball bands to kind of keep track of those. I like that there's a notes section. So in here, I might put, if I'm knitting a sweater, I knit the 24-inch size or the 54 size or, whatever size I knit so that I can remember because inevitably halfway through the sweater, unless I have circled my size every single time, I'll get halfway through and I'm like, okay, was I this size or that size? And I've been known to end up with sleeves that are probably skinnier than they're supposed to be because I changed it. Um, we also have dot grid paper if you want to take more detailed notes or sketch out a design of your own on here. We have graph paper so that if you are into chart making, you can start designing your own charts, your own things like that, which is fantastic. This is regular graph paper as opposed to knitting graph paper because I wanted it to be useful for both knitters and crocheters. We know that knitted stitches are a little bit shorter than they are tall, but crochet stitches do tend to be kind of the opposite. So we found a nice medium here. And then this is my favorite part is we have page protectors, which if you fold your pattern in half, you can fit it in here, which this is, I think, my very stripy cowl pattern. And then this elastic band can act as a bookmark. So I can use it to not only bookmark that this is the page that I'm working on, but as I'm knitting, I can slide it down and put it right below the row that I'm working on so I can keep it on here. The pages are a half sheet about, they're like these are not quite 5.5 by 8.5. They're a little bit smaller than that, but about there, I'm trying to remember where they call it an A5 or an A4 planner. It's half sheet paper. Then I'm going to flip my camera real quick. Oops, not turn off the camera, flip the camera so I can see, so you can see up front. Okay. The journal, you have your pattern right here. I'm going to put it in what I call easel mode. So if I take the journal and flip it backwards, I can take the snap and snap it into itself that way. And then I can set this next to me on the table and I can watch my pattern as I'm going and move my elastic band to keep track of my chart of where I'm at or the row that I am in the pattern so that I know exactly where I'm at. We also have pages that go in here that are card pages for all of those fantastic doodle decks that I'm obsessed with. So you can store those in here from the lovely Jamie Lomax and all of the things. It does have the card pages at the very beginning, which are great for if you are actively working on a doodle, you can put the cards that you are working on right here. So they're right up front and center. Um, and yeah, this is one of those things that it comes with 10 or it comes with 12 project pages in here, which means it's fantastic if you have a goal to knit a project a month, that you have a whole year in a single journal right here. Um, it's great for kind of archival. So if you do a lot of charity work or you knit for other people and you give something away, that you've always got a little snippet of yarn. You've got your swatch, you've got all your things so you can remember things and you always have a little piece of it. Sharon, happy birthday. Sharon says she's 70 years old today. Um, and she mentioned that her husband got her the Advent box. Yay! So our Advent boxes are sold out, unfortunately, but starting here in 10 days. So on we do November differently in our business. Um, one of the kind of sad things about um, running a business in November is everybody talks about Black Friday, and I love Thanksgiving. I hate having to come in the day after Thanksgiving and then deal with sales or whatever. So we just totally like opt out of Black Friday as a company. Instead, we do what we call 10 days of gratitude, which means the 10 days leading up to Thanksgiving, I send an email every day saying something that I'm grateful for, a little story about my life, a little something that is making me feel that energy. I remember a few years ago, honestly, it was probably before the pandemic. Do you remember on social media that everybody, every day of November would be like, this is what I am thankful for today. And it would be something small. And I thought that it brought such a beautiful spirit into the season. And I loved that. And so we do that for the 10 days leading up to Thanksgiving. I send a little email with what I am grateful for. There's a prompt if you would like to post on social media of what you are grateful for. And then, of course, I give you a little gift, a little discount, a little promotion or something for something in the shop on those 10 days. And the first day of the 10 days of gratitude, the 17th, is when we open up enrollment for our surprise box club for next year. And I'm so excited for this year. Like, we have a treasure map and it's going to be amazing. And we have something that we give people every month. So even though it's a quarterly boxes, every month you get something. We have some challenges and prizes and all sorts of fun things that we're doing. And I'm so excited. But enrollment is only open from November 17th through January 2nd. And then we're closing the doors because we're giving something every month. We don't have the ability to let people in late this year. So it is a hard stop January 2nd. So if you are interested in any of that, um, mark your calendars for the 17th because that's when you can get in. And um, oh, um, Sabrina, did you say that the summer camp thing is on the treasure map? Um, Katie's over there like, so we have plans for an in-person event in 2027. Um, and we're calling it Twice Your Cheap Summer Camp. It will be in Pocatello, and members of the Surprise Box Club get early access to that. There will only be 120 slots, 130, 130 slots. And members of the Surprise Box Club get first access to that. We've already locked in four amazing teachers. Katie, can I say who they are? It'll be a surprise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we haven't revealed it yet. If you want to, I'm okay with it.
No, no, it'll be a surprise. It'll be a surprise. We've been in talks with Jessica for 2028, I think. We're super excited to see so many people in person. It makes me really happy. It is a logistical craziness, though, let me tell you. And Pocatello is a small town. I mean, we're not a tiny town, but we're a small town, and we've had all sorts of interesting things. Yes, in person means travel to Pocatello. There will be tours of our studio. You get to meet our staff. It will be amazing.
And
Maybe you
that's
get to make some
in
stitch markers. Pocatello is in Idaho,
Idaho. Yes.
USA. Yes.
It's
Sorry.
not like, Brooklyn or Manhattan or
Yes, Pocatello is not one of those it's not Denver or Brooklyn. Um, yes. So November 17th through January 2nd is Katie, can you drop the link for Surprise Box Club? Um, you can add it to your wish list right now, which means the website will notify you when it's available. Um, Miriam, there are flights into Salt Lake City, which is about 2 hours south of us, and then there's a little puddle jumper plane that comes right to Pocatello. Um, we love that term, puddle jumper plane. So um, yes. Okay, last thing, because I know that our time is up. Reminder that if you saw anything that was exciting to you today, that there's the coupon code KnitHappy2025 that you can use to get 20% off on our website. Um, Also, we are so excited for all of the classes that we have, but especially that I'm teaching a heel turning class for my magic socks pattern on Saturday. And I would, because that is the thing that we get the most questions about. Anita, my sweater. This is our Color Story DK yarn, hand dyed by the wonderful Molly Klein for our shop. Um, and I think this is just a vanilla raglan sweater by Joji Pocatelli. Joji. He's my partner.
Locatelli.
Yes.
Locatelli, I think.
And I chose to fade it because I'm obsessed with all things fading. So it you this has, I think, a little tiny snippet of the brown at the bottom, but otherwise 4 colors. So the campfire, the clover, the ocean blue, African violet purple, and then the chocolate is the brown. Um, yes, there is mountain biking in Pocatello, Idaho. Um, there are many things in Pocatello, Idaho. Yay, heel turning workshop. Um, yeah, I'm excited. I was going to give you like the whole how to knit a magic sock, and it was an hour long. And Jessica's like, no, 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 it needs to be it needs to be consumable. I'm just an overachiever, you know.
Um,
Okay.
Dawn,
I
can you say the coupon code out loud for the recording?
Coupon code out loud again is KnitHappy2025 to get 20% off.
Yes, and that applies not to the Surprise Box Club, and the Advent sold out, so you couldn't grab it now anyway,
Yeah.
but
Um,
for all the other stuff, I believe.
yes, Jackie, the website says the 2026 Surprise Box Club is sold out. It will show sold out until the 17th when we make it available. But you can click the little purple box, pinky purple box that says add to wish list. If you add it to your wish list, the website will notify you as soon as we add quantity to that, and it will become live.
Yes, and that code is in the email that I sent yesterday about the kickoff party that I had with Katie last night, and the reminder email about this session. So if you misplace it, just check your email and it is there for you. It will also be at the bottom of all your daily emails where it says meet our sponsors. And I'm so, so grateful to Dawn and Katie and the whole Twice Sheared Sheep team for teaming up with me. And I've already told my husband 2028 I'm going to hang out with Dawn and Katie, and you're just gonna have to manage.
Great. The
So
boys are
yes,
older. It's fine.
yeah, they'll be a whole like another like year and a half, 2 years older, so that'll
Yeah,
be fine. Yeah,
be fine.
I might have to call them, remind them to feed the cat, but other than that,
The
um,
amazing thing about teenagers is they're more competent than we think that they are. You know, I bet that they care about the cat. They would like to feed the cat.
We
Yeah.
will see.
I told Dawn that this was my plan since I got to meet you at Rhinebeck. I was like, okay, I can make this work so that you can meet in person.
Well, genuinely, I am so excited because Jessica, I've taken classes from a lot of different people, and Jessica is one of the kindest, gentlest, most thorough instructors I've ever seen. So I don't know if all of you out there realize how lucky you are to have Jessica and to take her classes and to have her teach for you and to write patterns for you because she really, really is the best.
Aw, you're gonna make me tear up. Thank you for your very kind words. Yeah, this has been absolutely wonderful. And so you have that code. Go treat yourself to something pretty, something useful, something helpful that will make a difference in your knitting. And like Dawn said, we're not saving the world, but we're making our lives easier, and we deserve for our lives to be just a little bit easier. And yeah, so we will be back live again in a little under an hour. I'm gonna go eat something and respond to some emails. And at 1 o'clock, we have a speaker panel, and it's the same Zoom link that you used to join, but I will send you an email. It might be in your inbox already if the internet fairies did their thing. We're looking for fairies and not gremlins today.
Yes.
And if you need anything, reach out, knithappysummit.com/contact, or send me an email at knithappysummit@gmail.com. It's a separate inbox so that I see your messages, because you don't want to know what my messages look like right now. And I'm very lucky to have Janessa helping me. So one of us will get back to you within about 12 to 24 hours. There's only two of us, and we are only human. So patience. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this. This is fantastic as always. And I've got a whole wish list to hand to my husband, and I can't wait. So thank you for joining us. And I go eat, go get a drink, go, make sure you have a project, and we'll be back for speaker panel at 1 o'clock Eastern, which is in about 45 minutes from now.
Okay.
All right. Safe travels, Katie.
Thank you.